Okay, let's go ahead and get back into this. We have this part of the GB at this point. I wanted to discuss some of the variations we might see in our references. Let's come in here, and we're getting into doing the rear of the airplane. As you remember, when I discussed about this in class, the rear ailerons back here have a skyvout taken out of them so that there's room for the rudder in the back to travel back and forth and fix its movement. And you can see here that air gap that I also discussed, which is not consistent from side to side, but you need that to be able to turn this through its pivot. Otherwise it would grind against the metal here. So one other interesting note that I don't think I've ever caught before on this airplane, and we're not going to do that, but it helps explain a few things, is that if you look up here and you look at the attitude of this relative to the airplane, it is not straight in the middle of the airplane. It's tilted to the left a little bit here as it moves forward. And I'm assuming that is there to counteract some of the effects of the engine spinning in a certain direction. And that probably makes the plane want to tilt a certain way, and that helps sort of counteract that torque that's always going on. So realize I know that this is here, and that's a little odd that this tips to the left, but we're not going to model it like that. But let's be aware as we're modeling this at the rear that the rear aileron, the rear flap, the tail rudder here, this gets bulgy at the bottom and then way thinner up at the top. And you can see that's probably an inch to an inch and a half up top and then very bulbous at the bottom. So we're going to be cognizant, and we're going to try to match the look and feel of that. We can look at a few other views. You can see here again too. You can see the gap on this is much more consistent. Maybe that airplane that we're looking at is a replica, or maybe it's been crashed. Who knows? And it's always interesting to see things that are hand built. Like look at the gap here on the cowl, and look at the gaps here. They're not consistent. And all of these things that are hand built, they're not perfect. And so it helps to sort of commit to the style and look of whichever airplane you're going to do. Also notice that the bulge of the airplane cockpit kind of carries through. You can see a core highlight that kind of runs in here and kind of stops before it gets to the rudder and adds sort of a bulge into the airplane in this area here. We've got little lights. We've got these guy wires that hold the wings steady. We've got the landing pods. We've got a few things to do yet, but I thought we'd maybe look at some of the reference. You can see also here too that this little fillet on the actual airplane is an extra little piece of metal. Now we could get into doing all of this panel gapping and riveting and all of that. I think it might be too much for this stage of modeling, but just be aware of some of the things that we know are here, but we're probably going to skip for this version of the airplane that we're doing. So let's go ahead. We're looking from a little bit farther away right now, and you can see again here too how the thickness of that tail rudder is. You can see a little bit about the construction of the airplane here, how that all gets assembled, and you can see how the mechanisms are in the rear. You can see this display model that we're often seeing, and again, just good reference. And this will all be on the USB that you were given inside of the reference folder. So, a few different views, and we're back to that. Okay, so let's come in here now. Let's go ahead and turn the orthographic views back on, and we can see where we're at. Let's go ahead and go into the side view. And we ended the airplane right now kind of right at the rear where the rudder starts. Why don't we go ahead, we'll select the airplane. Let's go into vertices. I'm going to select the vertices at the rear, and let's bring them forward just a smidge. Oop, you know what I did? I did not turn on X-ray, so I did not get everything. That winds up, by the way, being the only legitimate way that I've found to be able to pick through everything when you're picking stuff. So that is to enable the X-ray view. So you'll see here that toggles it on and off. And you'll notice when I do it, it sort of changes. If you look here, instead of where I'm clicking up at the top, you'll notice that the look and feel of it changes when I switch to X-ray mode. And when we're in X-ray mode, it selects all of the vertices, even the ones that we aren't able to see from the side view. Whereas if I go one more time, if I go into side view and I turn that off and I pick, you'll notice that the vertices that were on the far side of the airplane did not get picked. And the hotkey for that is Alt-Z, okay? So let's go ahead and pick through that again. We've moved them forward a bit, and it would be great if you guys had a bunch of time to spend sculpting right now. Let's worry about getting the geometry, and then after the geometry's there, then we'll get fancier about sculpting. Right now, the border of the rear wing is crossing over 3 polygons. And even though it's crossing over 3 polygons, realistically, we're going to have this area in the back that comes off of there as well. So we'll probably add a polygon for that too, since it hangs off of the back. And we'll sort of creep up on this problem. Now we've got a few different things to address here, and maybe it's time we start getting into that. So let's go ahead and consider the fact that this transition, if we went from this edge, if we deleted this set of faces here, to put the wing in, that would be much too large of a transition to put inside of here. So we need to go in and kind of fix that. There are a lot of different ways. Remember, we had the insert edge loop tool, which is sometimes called loop cut. If I go into edges here and I right click, we can do loop cut and slide. But I don't think we're going to go that route, because if I do that and I click, hold on, I didn't actually enable it. Loop cut and slide. If I come in here, you can see it's going to travel all the way. Let me zoom out a little bit here. I always do that. I always forget to hold shift. All right, if I do loop cut and slide, all right, you can see where that's going to go. We don't want to affect the polygons all the way to the front of the airplane. And so I like to nickname that tool the sledgehammer. We don't want the sledgehammer. What we want is the surgeon scalpel. And that is the knife. Okay, so here's the knife tool. So what we can do on the knife tool is we can come in and we can start to, maybe that was a little high for that. Let me backspace out of that. Hold on. Let's do that and just and we'll start that over again. Let's come down here more where it starts. And then we will come across here. We'll come across here. All right, let's let this go ahead a little long over here. We will slice it maybe to approximately here. You'll see I'm not right on top of the fillet for right now, because again, with these blends, it doesn't have to be pixel perfect. I will be happy if you guys just understand the process. And I clicked the button and it didn't take. All right, so we're going to do that one more time. And you see at the front, I went right up to that vertex. You probably don't want to do the front one on an edge. That won't be the proper way to do it. And what I did that I missed last time was I forgot to hit enter at the end. So now you can see we've got some additional geometry here. And now what's going to happen is we need to cut that out. And then once we cut that out, we're going to use that as the launching pad for the beginning of doing the front of the front edge and fillet area of the rear aileron. But the problem we have here is that we've created a triangle, and there are a few different ways we can handle this. We'll probably do it after the fact, and I'll talk about a few of the ways. One of the easiest ways, if you really consider it, if I eliminate this inner edge right here, what I can do is let's see if dissolve works. Yep. What that did is that actually made this four-sided. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now technically I can get away with that. All right. And it looks like I've got an extra vertex in here, like it maybe didn't go right to the edge. That I'll probably have to deal with by welding, but that's not the end of the world. We will get to there. All right, but that might be all we need to solve that. But let's go ahead and we'll go to faces. We will select the 4 that we know are involved, and we'll go ahead and delete those. And so now we have the starting point that we're going to need to be able to put that wing inside of there, and it fits in the proper zone. So knife is a new tool that we haven't really used yet. I guess I could eliminate this face too. Let's just go ahead and do it for right now. So there we go. And now we have that area and just a rough, crude starting point to be able to put this wing in here. And as usual, these things wind up being a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle. So I think I will keep this video short for right now, and then we will get into making the wing in the next video. Okay, thanks.